Gunner showed a lot. I don't think that loss is on Gunner. I think you have to look at what he did with a lot of praise. Georgia didn't lose that game because of Gunner. He was very accurate with a lot of throws. As a Georgia fan, you can get excited about the future. And then Tim Tebow went on to say, it is someone that you can at least say, if this was our guy, we can build around him. That was Tim Tebow on Thursday, leading up to the Notre Dame Penn State game. Gosh. Yeah, talking about Gunner Stockton and what the future holds for him. And Thursday was a pretty nutty day in Athens. Carson Beck going back to college. We don't know where yet. Probably Miami. We'll see. Could be Colorado. Could be Miami. There's a lot of places that are open. Alabama, Ole Miss. And we'll just see how it goes. But Gunner Stockton appears to be the guy that's going to be the starting quarterback in 2025 at Georgia. Well, what does that mean? We can talk about, now we're seeing that Notre Dame is going to play for the national championship. I think they earned that win both of the times. I think they will have a very challenging time in their next game. I will say that. But, Gunner Stockton, you try to explain to people this is not going to be easy for Georgia. You try to explain to them they're starting a guy in the biggest game of the year now who's never started before. We don't know how he's going to deal with adjustments at the line of scrimmage when the bullets are flying. We don't know what he's going to deal like when there's 3 weeks of practice to get ready, 3.5 versus, 20 minutes to go prepare to play. We didn't know what we didn't know. And it wasn't Gunner Stockton's fault that Georgia lost. The turnovers were the fault. I mean, it was 3 plays that cost them that game, and probably an appearance in the national championship game. I don't think Georgia would win the national championship personally. I don't think Notre Dame will, but at least they get a chance to do it and try. I think what we don't know about the future at Georgia specifically, I would say, is what's going to happen on the offensive line. That's the part that, although you're returning some guys who have started, Monroe Freeling, Ernest Green, and Drew Bobo, what we don't know is who's going to be on that line and who's going to, what will that line look like in particular situations? Are they going to be better at run protection, run blocking than pass protection? I don't know, and we'll just have to see. So that's the biggest thing, and that affects the quarterback more than anything. I mean, the reason why Georgia got into, I would say, a real problem was not necessarily because of Gunner Stockton. It was because of, pass rush that was not blocked effectively. And, that caused the strip sack. I always want to call Gunner Stockton Stetson. I know he's not Stetson. I get that. They're not at all the same person, okay? They don't, Stetson has extremely fast quickness. That's not Gunner Stockton. People think, oh, well, Gunner's going to take off for a 60-yard touchdown. That's not who he is, man. If you need him to get you 8 yards, yeah, now he can do that. I mean, but like to run for these long, that's not who he is. If you watched the Sugar Bowl, you saw some of the throws, you're like, wow, I mean, this guy can really throw it. He can really throw it. But, I was looking at some futures on this week, during the week. And, Georgia is still highly thought of for the 2025 season. Why? Well, I mean, I think for more than anything, when you take a look at the roster and so forth, and they've got a quarterback, they know who the quarterback is moving forward. There's a lot to be positive about. And frankly, a lot of change is coming in college football. I mean, you've got Ohio State, their roster's probably going to get rolled over. There's just a lot. There's a lot of change going on right now in college football from one team to the next. We still don't, from one year to the next, from 24 to 25. We still don't know a lot of different things, but it's going to be the usual suspects. It's going to be Georgia and so forth. But anyway, Georgia was the second leading team in terms of if you favored, who are you favoring to win the national championship in 2025? Guess who was number 2? It was Georgia. With all of the turnover and all of the, kind of, I don't know what it's called, but it was Ohio State, Texas, Oregon, and Georgia. Georgia, Oregon, and Texas were all the same. Well, we know Oregon's going to have a new quarterback. We know Texas is going to have a new quarterback. It'll be Arch Manning. And Ohio State will all have those 4 will be the teams that people talk about going into things. Notre Dame will have to have a new quarterback. I mean, there's would you pick Clemson to win the national championship in 2026? I would not, but that's me. And that's just the thing is when you start talking about Gunner and moving forward, the number one metric you look at when you're thinking about who's going to win it all, who's going to win the league, you're looking at who the returning quarterback is or who the quarterback is that will be replacing the returning or the former returning quarterback, the starting quarterback. And, I think for Georgia now, you've had Stockton play in the 2 biggest games that Georgia played this season. And honestly, he played pretty well in both of them. They were different games, but he played pretty well in both of them. Our friends at BetMGM have a great offer today. Speaking of betting on the future, we're going to do that responsibly, by the way. Use the promo code MEGABET, MEGABET, and get a chance to get up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. I know we got a bunch of winners. So make sure that you check that link out down below if for some reason you're not a winner on your first bet. That's from our friends at BetMGM, online. And I think when you take a look at where Georgia's at, the first 4 games, 2 of them are pretty big games. At Tennessee, at Alabama. Georgia will probably be favored in both those games. At Tennessee, maybe very narrow. Like the days of them being like a 10-point plus favorite in every game they play, that's probably fading away. Now, every game, no. A lot of games, yeah. I mean, I'll just go through it right now real quick. I mean, when you look at 25, Marshall, Austin Peay, they'll be huge favorites in those games. At Tennessee, Georgia might be a 3 to 5, 6-point favorite. I don't know. It'll depend on what we get out of Tennessee from the start. Alabama, Georgia will be I'll probably think about a 6 to 7-point touchdown favorite, something like that. And then Kentucky and Athens, they'll be favored pretty heavily in that game. Got to go to Auburn. They'll probably be favored by 5 to 10. I don't know. Some of that will depend on Auburn. Ole Miss and Athens, again, much like Alabama, will probably be anywhere from 7 to 10. Florida might be 7 to 10. At Mississippi State, it'll probably be more than 10. Texas and Athens, that'll be something like 7 to 10. Maybe like more like 2 to 5 for Texas. And then Charlotte and Athens, Georgia will be a huge favorite. They'll be a huge favorite over Georgia Tech in Atlanta, even though the game is in Atlanta. It'll be at the Dome, so that won't be the same. So there will be some games here, but the good news is if you got Gunner Stockton, the experience he's got, you get to roll him out there against Marshall and Austin Peay. He's never started on the road. And he's got 2 of the toughest places to play in the SEC. They got to go there, which is Tennessee and Auburn. But this is a great schedule for Georgia, man. This is a great schedule for Georgia. This is not the same schedule as 24, okay? You're not going to Alabama. You're not going to Austin. You're not going to Oxford. You're not going to Commonwealth. I mean, those are challenging situations, okay? Going to state, I can't say that. You're not going to hear me say it's an appreciably difficult place to play. Not compared to the other SEC schools. It's just not. That doesn't mean they will win or they won't. But you cannot compare state to Tennessee and Auburn. So once they get back from Auburn, that's like the challenging road game situations. They got one. And I mean, it's at state. So that's, they could build some serious momentum after the Auburn game. And if they've not lost by that point, they might not lose in the regular season. And if I'm guessing, they're probably not going to lose by that point. But Texas, Texas is going to be a good team. Georgia's going to be good. Texas is going to be good. It is curious seeing the futures that, that you've got teams like Penn State as a heavier favorite to win the national championship over Alabama. It's hard to get used to that, to reconcile that. But, we don't know what we don't know. I mean, I certainly would not have picked Notre Dame to play for the national championship this season. But they will, and they've earned that. I mean, particularly the win over Georgia, I think set them up. As I said, we were in New Orleans, and I would take the winner of Georgia Notre Dame in Miami. That turned out to be Notre Dame to play for that game. I would not have picked that team to win the national championship. I still would not. I would take the winner of Ohio State, Texas. I think Ohio State, very specifically, if they play the way that they have the capability to, Notre Dame will not be within 2 touchdowns of them, to be honest. But that's not how Notre Dame lets you play. They're going to slime things up with their defense, and I mean that in the most positive way. I mean, slow things down, put a bunch of glue on the field. I mean, their defense is pretty good. And if you don't have playmakers, Penn State doesn't have playmakers, it's hard. It's hard to do things. The challenge for Notre Dame is they did not drive the field to score against Georgia a touchdown. They did not drive the field and score a touchdown against Georgia. That did not happen. Their touchdowns came in on a special teams play and from the 10 or whatever yard line it was. They are going to have a hard time moving the ball against Ohio State and Texas, moving the ball to score. It was pretty ugly in the first half. And Ohio State will have to turn it over for Notre Dame to beat them. And Georgia did. Well, Ohio State, I don't know, but that's how you win national championships. You don't have to be the best team. You just have to be the best team on the field in the playoff. That's it. And you just have to be the best team the moment you play. I mean, Notre Dame is going to finish the season number 2. They're not the second best team in the country. But, Oregon, was eliminated. Either Texas or Ohio State won't be there. So they have the chance to steal a national championship, and they very well could. I will have to see it to believe it, but they very well could. And that's kudos to them, man. Marcus Freeman's done a great job this season. Well, this season, generally speaking, outside of the Northern Illinois game. And from that point forward, they adjusted. Now, they did not play a schedule that was worth a shit, but they didn't exactly get into real challenging situations either, which is kudos to them. And when it came down to playing, sort of legitimate games, which they've played 3 in a row now, they've won all those games, 2 of them by double digits, one, narrowly last night. So it's been a great run for Notre Dame. We'll see if they can continue it. If Georgia wants to have that kind of thing, which they have done, if Georgia wants to play for the national championship next year, which they've done 3 times in the last however many seasons, 8 seasons, they can completely do that. And to revisit what Tim had to say, I think you have to look at what he did with a lot of praise, talking about Gunnar Stockton. They did not lose the game because of Gunnar Stockton. He was very accurate with a lot of throws. As a Georgia fan, you can get excited about the future. I think you can too. I think the question becomes, with what Georgia's brought in, okay, and has now returning. We know that ETN is coming back. We know that Cash Jones is coming back. We know that, unless something strange happens, we know that Frazier's coming back, and we know Dwight Phillips is coming back. These are all things I'm somewhat assuming. If Trevor, it's been reported, is coming back. You have the influx of transfer guys. They got some explosion that they did not have earlier this season, or in 2024. And Gunnar will take advantage of that. If Gunnar can have explosive plays without so many explosive players, Arian Smith's an explosive player. He made an explosive play for Georgia. Now you're taking 2 guys from the portal, one from SC, and then one from, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting everybody that's coming. One from SC and one from A&M. You have some very productive and explosive receivers. That's what you have to have if you want to win in a big way. Georgia's got that. The offensive line is the question. That's not a great place to have questions, but we thought that was an answered question earlier this year about 24's offensive line. and they just didn't play well. So we'll see what happens in 25.